There's a growing trend amongst the younger generation, what we call the millennials from 35 years and younger, who are increasingly becoming atheistic or non-believers or not being associated or affiliated with any religion whatsoever. They call them the nuns now. In the US, that's as high as 25% of the youth. In Europe, as much as 40% is in France. In India, amongst the educated, such as in the Indian Institute of Technology, as surveys show, as high as 52% who are now claiming to be atheists. So what does that, what would you contribute this trend to? What have been the failures within the organized religions, the traditional religions in past, where they've been unable to meet or provide for those particular needs of the youth today?
Well, I don't see this as a new trend. I remember back in the 70s when I first encountered deeply spiritual people. Most of the people that I was in college with or that I knew at that time, who were at that time in their 20s, like I was, had left their religion of origin and were disassociated from it then. And even where we're here now at the abode, when it was formed, most of the people who moved here with Pir Vilayat were in that same kind of category, that they were leaving either the Catholic Church or they had left the synagogues that their parents went to, and this kind of, to them, kind of rigid structure was something that they were rebelling against. And I don't see this as something new. I see it as a continuing process of being young and wanting to kind of make your own mark in the world rather than, kind of go with what was done before. And so I think these people who are now saying that, like many of the others that I've met over the years, will eventually either come back or they'll go to some other newer, to them, new religion. I think it's probably always been that way.
Well, if I have to add up to this thing, I think in these modern times, because I'm certainly a lot younger than Imam, and so the reasons, we are talking about the reasons why people, even if today or even if in the past, what happens to a youth at a certain age that he feels deep in his heart or in his mind that the religion is not facilitating him in one or the other way to pursue his ambitions or his desires in the time and the age he is living. And I personally see that sometimes it has to do with, mostly it has to do with those who are imparting the religious education, right? And how this mind conditioning through different mediums has changed or strengthened the commanding self within one individual. And the lack of those who are imparting religious education in one or the other way, their ability to make this youth understand what does really the meaning of the religion is, what is the real essence of it. See, I mean, today what I see that we have been continuously taught through various mediums the modern worldview, and which is certainly not the same as the traditional worldview. And in the traditional worldview, where we see this hierarchy of a creator, of angels, of cosmic bodies, and then my life here, and then my life hereafter. So what we have been taught when I was young and when I was studying in West and also in Central Asia, that is what I noticed, that because I came from a very traditional background where we had all these things still alive, still being practiced. And in the West, when I was studying with the youth, I was living my friends, they had no idea about these things. They were having a totally modern worldview where there was nothing like that. And you are just a social animal, and that is it. And you have every right to go and run after your base desires. And since the base desires are based on the accumulation of material, and the religion in its essence tells you that material, that you should own the material. With this modern worldview, the material started owning the human beings, and it started owning the human consciousness. For example, if I see the television ads back in Pakistan and it is telling me that you can be the fortunate one in one in the billions if you can have a Toyota Corolla car, right? So this is that we have attached that fortune with the material. And now that material, which is, which does not, what we say, which is fani, which has fana, which will decay.
Decay, yeah.
Right? Back in human nature, the human desire is based on two basic foundation pillars. One is what we call as Kamale Hasti. Kamale Hasti means that perfection of your being. That is one of the pillars of human desires. And the second one is Dawame Hasti, which means eternity of your own being. And all the rest of the human desires and what we see today, they spring forth from these two major desires. This is a very base example, but look at the cosmetic industry. What is that desire actually in its essence? Is that you want that perfection in the beauty, and you are pursuing it, right? But with this modern worldview, that beauty is simply the outward beauty. And then you find the means and ways, and you find the herbs, and you find the chemicals and powders and the lipsticks and whatever it is, right? And you struggle to beautify yourself outwardly.
But the thing is that you're beautifying yourself according to somebody else's sense of beauty.
That is what I am telling.
Yes,
now,
okay.
Well, even in the past, even in your time, there were cosmetics. Even back when, but that was balanced and was at equilibrium, because religion was telling you that there is inner beauty also. Right? So here, we miss that part, and that has changed the balance. Religion does not teach you that you should live like, in the jungles or in the monasteries, or just thinking about the life hereafter and not the life here. Well, I come from Islam, and to our beliefs, Deen is for this lifetime, right? Hereafter, there are no hududs. Right? There is no jurisprudence,
Right.
Islamic
No
jurisprudence in this form hereafter. So what does it mean? That the religion is for this life, and it has to be balanced outwardly and inwardly too. So so one aspect is that it is the influence by this capitalist marketing, or I'm not in the economy side, I don't know about all these Wall Street things, but I know one thing, that this reflects the greed within the commanding self of a human being. So those who are under that influence of the greed, whoever they are sitting in the banks, or they are sitting in the corporations, or they are sitting in the power corridors, whoever they are, right? Actually, that greed is that monster which is giving them, which is conditioning the mind, which is preparing that soil to put that same seed of greed into the minds of the youth, so that they do not see the life beyond greed, right? So one is that factor. The human beings are very vulnerable, and with this so-called influx of information through internet or through other things, we have been taught that we do not need any teacher. This information, this Google Baba is enough for us.
Baba.
You put something into it, and he is the guide, he is the teacher. Right? One thing is that is my observation. The other thing is that the religious class also, they are also infected by these influences. They are also the human beings. They are also living here on this planet Earth, and they are not living on water or, by the way, now the water is also, you are selling the water. So not only on water or on oxygen, right? They have to pay the bills. They have to pay the tuition fees of their so economy, and more this greed is making the life of human beings very difficult to live in harmony and attached to their anchorage of their spirit. The second thing was that the human consciousness, I won't say that it has evolved, right? Because it is always there. The chances to explore the higher level of human conscious, this greed is making it impossible. And the religious class has failed to teach the real essence and the meaning. They are still teaching them the primitive things, which were probably told by all the religious figures in the human history. In that age and time, keeping in view the state of the human mind. For example, if I can be more elaborate, I don't know if it goes long, but what happens is that I have a child. My son's name is Adam, and he only listens, and really the name of my son is Adam. So Adam only listens that to everything in the perspective of God, right? So he is going near to the fire. If I tell him that, look son, this is fire, it will hurt you. He won't stop because his mind is at that primitive stage where he listens and understands everything in respect to the Creator or to the Lord. So what medium I would use? I would certainly tell him, look, God will be angry. And then he will stop. My purpose is that he should stop at that place where that thing hurts him. But now, to communicate and to save him, I have to give him the message in the form of sin or in the form of
Warning.
warning, right? So, I think that if this religious caste keep on doing the same thing, now we have changed. Now the human minds needs the answer which can tell him, right, that hell and heavens, I mean there are hell and heaven, right? But that hell and heaven is something different. The religion is for this life, right? So we have to reform the message on the basis of the same principle, right? And we have to tell him that religion is not only for the hereafter, it is for your life over here. And that is being missed. Whether it is Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, wherever we go. That is the reason. Now here we find a person, right, who is under the influence of the modern worldview, and for him, this world and this life is enough. That's it. And the religion, what it is offering him is everything which has to do anything with hereafter. So these are the two things which I think are leading the youth to go astray and not being in balance. But certainly, as Imam was saying, that an age comes when people explore the things, when they try to find the meanings by their own. So it is very natural, and it has been all the time. Like in youth, you do different experiences. In these, 25, 35 age, you tend to explore, then your ego is also strong, that I can do the things on my own, so let me be like that. So it's simple, it's natural, but it is certainly not that God has forgot us. It is simply because those who were responsible to guide the fellow human beings with whatever knowledge they were given, there are shortcomings, certainly, to my point of view.
So I want to say one thing in agreement with you, and also an expansion of what I was saying before as well, and that is let's take religion out of the picture. Okay, let's not talk about religion. Let's talk about farming. Most of the family farms in the United States, for one reason or another, some of their children, or many of them, or sometimes all of them, leave. Okay? You know, I never was in a farming family, so I don't know why they leave, but I can guess a couple of different things. You know, there's the bright lights of the city are attracting them like a moth, to a flame, or the work is just extremely hard. They go to university, their parents think to learn about agriculture, but they learn poetry instead. So there's all kinds of attractions that was being spoken about that bring them away from that farm, and it's a common thing, and it isn't happening all of a sudden now in the 20th century. This has been going on for a long time. Otherwise, cities grew up because, as far as I remember, I'm not a great person who understands archaeology or anthropology all that well, but I do what I understand is that people would need these centers of learning and trade and all of that. And so when people would come in from the countryside with their crops and all of that, and of course they would bring their children, and as they get into being teenagers, and I recently heard that our brains are still developing right up into our 20s. So all of a sudden there's kind of a spark of knowledge that happens, where we all of a sudden become a little bit more aware and a little bit more enlightened just on our own, just from the physical way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has our brains develop. And there's an old saying, how are you going to get them back on the farm once they've seen Paris? Which is exactly what happens in that. So I think the same thing happens to youth in many different aspects of their life. I mean, look at the story of Romeo and Juliet. Here or Layla and Majnun, the whole idea that this is a rebellion, and in both of these cases, this is a rebellion that's born out of love. Okay, so part of what I think is happening in this, this time of youth between maybe 15 and 23, 24, is that not only is the brain developing, but the heart also is developing. It starts seeking. It becomes a seeker. And during that time, it's almost like what formed their life up to that point, they don't value it anymore, because the heart is all of a sudden in the seeker mode. Like a little drone that God has a little controller, a little joystick, and sending us here and there according to what our heart starts to love. So it's natural, in my view, for these teenagers or early 20s or something like that to be in a state of needing desperately to leave something behind and go off and make their way. And yes, of course, it has something to do with the commanding nafs and the blaming nafs also, because they're also wondering, what have I done wrong up until this point, and how could I be so different and live in a world that is surrounding me with images that they want me to take on, but I don't want to. So there's that involved too. And that's a stage that we have to go through in order to get to a place where we start to get that moment, that aha moment, and then they come back. Because that's what happens with the kids in the farms too. They come back, and they start to realize what the value was of the life on the farm, and the beautiful way of providing produce and goods and also textiles like cotton and flax and everything. So they come back now because they see it from a different perspective, and they can come back.